planes. And it caused the FAA to order a complete shutdown of all air traffic over El Paso, Texas. Sources tell CNN that the Pentagon plan to test anti-drone lasers around El Paso forced the FAA to shut down that city's airport on Tuesday. The Pentagon is trying to counter drones operated by Mexican drug cartels. At first, the FAA said the El Paso airport would be shut down for 10 days, raising serious questions about the impact on businesses and citizens. But several hours ago, it lifted the freeze and allowed the airport to reopen. There's a lot to unpack, including major questions about communications between the Pentagon and the FAA. Let's bring in CNN's aviation correspondent, Pete Muntean, with the latest. Take us through, if you would, Pete, the sequence of events, because the closure initially was extraordinary.
Yeah, it really caught a lot of people by surprise, including pilots flying in there to the El Paso International Airport when this restriction went into place late Tuesday night, local time in El Paso, Texas. Now we know from the Federal Aviation Administration and sources telling us that this was all caused by the Pentagon wanting to use a high-energy laser system, counter-drone technology that really did not jibe with what the Federal Aviation Administration thought was safe for civilian aircraft. So the FAA responded by putting into place this blanket 10 nautical mile, 10-day long restriction on all flights into and out of El Paso. That includes airline flights, private flights, also law enforcement and medevac helicopters, something that you typically don't see during a temporary flight restriction like this. This whole new explanation and all these new details really fly in the face of the White House explanation that this was all because of a wayward Mexican cartel drone that flew into U.S. airspace, causing all of this alarm. Really some big questions now about whether or not the Pentagon has backed off its use of this laser interception ability of drones. Also, whether or not this will really continue, the use of it will continue. The Defense Department has really not commented on whether or not it properly coordinated with the FAA, although it now seems that the FAA essentially did this action to force the hand of the Pentagon. There was a planned meeting on February 20th about the safety risks of this new technology between the Federal Aviation Administration and the Defense Department. Also lines up with the timeline of this 10-day long ban. That would have taken us to February 21st, the day after that planned meeting. Now all starting to make sense. Some pretty big questions about this technology, whether or not the Pentagon simply went rogue here and the Federal flights safe.
Yeah, that coordination or lack of it, really worrying. Aviation correspondent Pete Muntean, thank you. Justice Department over the Epstein files. Attorney General Pam Bondi testified at a fiery hearing on Capitol Hill today. Questions devolved into shouting matches at times as lawmakers grilled her about the heavily redacted files that conceal names of potential co-conspirators whilst exposing some of the victims' identities. One lawmaker said the cover-up is bigger than Watergate. Another asked Bondi to apologise to Epstein survivors.
It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
That's
respond.
not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't like the answer. So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't
a
she
question.
ask Merrick Garland this?
I am
Twice
reclaiming
when he
my
sat in my
time, and
chair.
when I
will
reclaim my
continue to
time,
answer.
it is
Mr. Chairman, the
my
gentlelady has
I'm
reclaimed her
not going
time.
to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
CNN Politics senior reporter Stephen Collinson is in Washington. I mean, you know, it was easy to be fixated on the survivors there, just watching this shouting match. No progress whatsoever, it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the hearing was somewhat of a farce. To see an attorney general behave that way in a congressional hearing, it seemed that her prime motivation was getting back into the good books of Donald Trump. That would explain why she started the Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting 50,000 and saying he was the greatest president ever. Nation's top law officer. I think really watching this hearing, you can come to is that the victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein are no closer to justice, and they'll be getting absolutely no help from the Justice Department, which you would think would be the place where they would go for recourse. Bondi kept saying, well, if the survivors want to talk to the FBI about their experience, they want to come and talk to the DOJ, our door is always open. The survivors say they've been trying to do that for decades, and they're getting absolutely no help, especially from the second Trump Justice Department.
I mean, lots of criticism of Bondi losing her temper, but, you know, the Democrats also lost their temper, didn't they? And this should be a subject they should be strong on.
Yes, and I think they, on the question of Epstein, I think they did make some reasonable points. Obviously, these congressional hearings are always about theatrics. They've kind of degenerated over the last decade or so, and they're less about oversight, and it's more about creating viral moments for partisan media on both sides, and the Democrats were certainly guilty of some of that as well. I didn't think they were very impressive on the question of the shootings in Minnesota. The questioning that they offered Bondi about why there's not been a more serious investigation into this, why she's cutting out local and state prosecutors, wasn't very focused or concentrated. It seemed that they were very keen to talk about Epstein matters, perhaps because that's the big issue of the moment. But really, I think they fell down quite considerably on pinning her down on the investigation into the killings of Alex Pretty and Renee Good last month in Minnesota, and she almost got a free pass on that. And I was kind of a little bit surprised about that. There aren't any lawmakers from Minnesota on the House Judiciary Committee, but even so, you would expect a more concerted Democratic plan there, I think.
What are the survivors going to go to next then? Because they're obviously looking forward to this moment of some sort of accountability. They didn't get it, so what do they look to next?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, they are trying to create some political momentum to get the Republican Congress to hold the Trump administration's feet to the fire here. That doesn't seem to be working in the same way as it did last year when they managed to get the entire Republican Party to revolt against the president and release these Epstein documents. This is now becoming a real issue in the midterm elections. I think that their best hope will be to pin their hopes on the Democrats winning potentially the House in the midterm elections, and they can get some more serious oversight. But if that is the case, and I think today's very, very acrimonious hearing suggests that a Democratic Congress and a Trump White House are going to be absolutely at war for the final 2 years of Trump's mandate.
Okay, Stephen, appreciate it as ever. Thank you.
Thanks.
Breaking news out of Canada, where police say they've identified a suspect in the mass school shooting that left 8 people dead, 25 injured. Authorities say they believe an 18-year-old transgender female was the shooter. Police believe she acted alone, killing 2 family members at home before attacking the school. Last hour, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke before Parliament. He says the country is in mourning.
This morning, families in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, woke to a different world. Parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters began this day as their first day on earth without someone they loved dearly. What happened has left our nation in shock and all of us in mourning. 9 people killed. More than 25 others injured. Some still in hospital fighting for their lives. The investigation is ongoing, and we must allow law enforcement the time and space to do their work accordingly.
CNN's Paula Newton joins us now from the Canadian capital of Ottawa. I was watching the press conference, Paula. So this suspect was known to the police. She didn't actually have her license had run out, hadn't it? Her gun license. So there are lots of questions here.
So many. I don't even know where to begin, Max. I think many in the community and quite frankly throughout the country, because the entire country is just shattered by this, want more answers about what was being done in this community about someone, a teenager whom they knew was troubled. I do want you to listen now to police and how they describe the suspect here. Listen.
The suspect is identified as an 18-year-old female by the name of Jessie. We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
So, Max, listen, a lot of questions here because police were very upfront about the fact that they had attended the residence for the suspect's mental health issues on several occasions, that a few times in their words she was apprehended. They also did disclose that Jessie began transitioning 6 years ago and that she had not attended school for the last 4 years. Now, what we also know here is about the victims. Now, thankfully, the death toll has gone down. So there are 8 that are confirmed dead, and then also the suspect who was found dead in the school. 2 people remain in what they call stable but critical condition. At least 25 others were treated at the scene. They're either in the health clinic in the community or have already been released to go home. In terms of how this unfolded, it really is much more dramatic than we could have even imagined, Max. I mean, what we know is that police got there within 2 minutes, and yet when they arrived, they were on the receiving end of gunfire. They apparently, as far as we know, did not return any gunfire, entered the school, and that is where they found at least 6 victims, and then the suspect, Jessie, who had died of what they describe as a self-inflicted injury. I do want to get back to that issue of firearms. Now, look, the suspect is described as 18 years old. They're not allowed to have a firearm license on your own until you are an adult. You can get what they call a minor license. So I don't know if that's what they're talking about in terms of having a license suspended, but there were firearms seized from that home. And then someone, I'm assuming the adult in the home, any adult, had petitioned to get them back. So why, if there were mental health issues that you know of in the home, were there firearms back in that home? And it does seem there was some kind of court process underway. I mean, look, Max, you just showed Prime Minister Mark Carney there with his statement. He was as shaken and as emotional as I have ever seen him. And that pretty much mirrors the feeling in the country. So many people, even listening to this press conference, wondering, why are we here again? And I know while many understand that Canada has much stricter gun control laws than they have in the United States, for instance, regardless, many in Canada still feel that gun crime is way too high. And this will again highlight the fact that even legal firearms, that there needs to be more checks and balances about how they're stored, where they are, and who can possess them.
Yeah, okay, Paula, thank you for joining us from Ottawa. TMZ is saying it's received a new note related to the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. The site says the note demands 1 Bitcoin in exchange for the name of the person involved in her disappearance. The FBI didn't comment. This comes after an Arizona man was detained for questioning but then released. The Pima County Sheriff's Department says it's received more than 4,000 calls to the tip line in the last 24 hours. Josh Campbell joins us now with the latest. I mean, there's so many parts of this that are horrifying, but someone charging for a tip is pretty up there.
Yeah, and you know, this is the latest kind of bizarre development in this ongoing investigation. We've seen in the past that there was a purported ransom note that was sent to the outlet TMZ as well as some other outlets. And now TMZ is saying that they've received this new note, demanding this 1 Bitcoin, which is about the equivalent of $66,000 US. You'll recall the FBI has its own reward out there for $50,000. And what TMZ says is that the letter writer doesn't claim to have Nancy Guthrie, but knows who does. And so it's really strange. It is worth pointing out, though, that law enforcement, they're looking into every possible tip. But I think the healthy dose of caution is in order here because none of the previous information that was sent to TMZ or those other outlets, the so-called ransom notes, have actually been unverified. And so there's still a question, Max, about whether this was, disinformation, someone just causing mischief, or, whether there's some possible connection to the actual case. Authorities are trying to run that down. The final point I'll note is you mentioned that there was a lot of law enforcement activity last night south of Tucson. Authorities stopped a man who was driving. They detained him, questioned him. Authorities said it was in connection with Guthrie's disappearance, but then he was released. And interestingly, he spoke to CNN today, and he said that he told investigators not only did he have nothing to do with Guthrie's disappearance, he didn't even know anything about it. There was a question, well, are they back to where they were yesterday after releasing that surveillance footage, trying to appeal to the public? We've still received no indication they have any suspects. They continue to ask the public for any information on what might have happened. Max.
They're searching Rose Nick and Nancy Guthrie's house. Presumably that's for anything that suspect in the video we see right now might have dropped. Is that the case?
Spot on, yeah. And I got that from a law enforcement source who said that we now see FBI agents around the Tucson, back out on the streets, and they're looking for just what you said. The person had multiple items with them: the face mask, there was a backpack, the clothing, firearm, and so now they're sending FBI agents out in droves along those roads to see if maybe he did discard something. Of course, the hope is if they are able to actually recover one of those items, are they able to pull any type of DNA, hair fiber, skin cells that may be on those items to try to get to some identification. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but clearly today we're seeing agents with their own eyes still conducting these searches.
Josh, thank you again.
Of course.
Now, for the seventh time in nearly 13 months, President Trump hosts the Israeli Prime Minister at the White House. Today's agenda: ongoing tensions with Iran. The US President says he will continue seeking a diplomatic arrangement despite skepticism within the Netanyahu government. This comes as Mr. Trump tells Axios he might deploy a second naval strike group to the Middle East. Here you can see just how much military force has been built up there near Iran. The President expects a second round of negotiations next week. Elena Treen joins us now from the White House. You got a sense that obviously Netanyahu wants to go in harder than Trump, and they've got to find some middle ground.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I do think there was such urgency, I think, with this Israeli-Minister meeting. They were supposed to meet initially next week, but then they moved that up to have the Israeli Prime Minister come to. And again, it's because of the urgency around all of these Iran talks and really Netanyahu wanting to get his say to try and persuade to perhaps expand the scope of some of those talks. So I do want to read to you because we did hear from the president. He did have a bit of a pointed message for Israel and specifically for Netanyahu on all of this. He said that it was a very good meeting, but then went on to say that there was nothing definitive reached other than that I insisted that negotiations with Iran continue to see whether or not a deal can be consummated. He said if it can, I let the prime minister know that that would be a preference. If it cannot, we will just have to see what the outcome will be. I do think that word, Max, insisted, is pretty significant. And look, again, it's pretty evident why Netanyahu came here today to meet with Trump. From all of the reporting that we have, is that he wanted to these negotiations to go beyond just the negotiations over a nuclear deal. We know that Netanyahu was likely to go in and try to persuade the president to make sure that they also discussed Iran's support for proxies in the regions, groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, and also, of course, the protests that we've seen this own White House behind me threaten Iran with, the lethal crackdown on anti-regime protesters. But from everything we've heard from the president in this statement, and also from some of the rhetoric we've heard from him publicly in recent days, as well as the conversations I'm having, Max, with people in that building, is that the president is open potentially to keeping this focus, these talks focus on a nuclear deal if he believes a good deal can be reached. And so we're going to have to see what this actually could lead to. I think, from other conversations I've had with Trump administration officials, they are very quick to point out that they are under no illusions that the Iranians are not always a trustworthy partner. I know many of them have been skeptical of whether or not they are trying to, in Trump's words, tap them along or try to stretch out these negotiations and put a potential attack at bay for the time being. But the president is saying if he believes it can be reached. Next, We have heard Trump say that they are hoping to have another meeting as early as next week between Trump administration officials and the Iranians. So far, we've really seen the president's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, but also his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, leading those talks. Those two also met with Netanyahu. They met last night before Netanyahu came here to the White House. Max?
Elena at the White House. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now, the actor and star of Dawson's Creek, James Van Der Beek, has died at the age of 48. His wife, Kimberly, shared the news on her Instagram, saying he passed peacefully and that he, quote, met his final days with courage, faith and grace. She went on to say, quote, for now, we ask for peaceful privacy as we grieve our loving husband, father, son, brother and friend. Van Der Beek revealed he was battling stage 3 bowel cancer. Late in 2024, he rose to fame in the 1990s, known for playing Dawson Leary in the hit TV show Dawson's Creek. Coming up, a US federal grand jury weighs in on whether Democratic lawmakers should be indicted for urging service members to disobey illegal orders.
Today we live in an unpredictable environment and news races around the world at breakneck speed.
It's a noble profession.
Why do you keep us out?
We want to keep you safe.
We're war correspondents. My show brings you the latest news and top news latest.
Can you tell me exactly about what's happening right now?
Some things in our past, and we're due to repeat them.
We also dive below the headlines.
If we are not blinded by hate, we can teach others humanity.
What does it feel like to be slapped with a 50% tariff? That's not a negotiation, Ambassador.
Any questions?
What were you thinking? You were obfuscating.
Well, I thought that actually you saw the contradiction.
It's crucial we make sense of what's happening.
Why do you want your country's future to be decided by US military intervention?
And fully understand what's at stake.
If you can double down on that, amen.
Amanpour, weekdays on CNN.
Discover the land of the rising sun. From the vibrant streets of Tokyo to the enchanting landscapes. Come explore Japan with CNN.
Yay, my first friendship bracelet.
And experience the best of this rich nation.
A desire to create timeless beauty everywhere.
Appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you.
An epic adventure to Japan's remote corners.
Kanpai.
If you can keep your head when markets all around you are losing and you can't see a way through, if you can trade and not make money your master, meeting triumph and disaster in equal measure, if you can run with the bulls and not be afraid of the bears, for when we come together, we will make sense of it all. And what is more, my friend, you will be profitable, for you are indeed watching Quest Means Business.
It's the ocean that shapes everything. Climate, weather, planetary temperature, planetary chemistry. It's where most of life on Earth actually is. People don't know why they should care. And that's what Mission Blue is trying to do. Protect what we can, inspire people to embrace the wild, restore places that have degraded to get to a better place. This network of hope through the Hope Spots that now are in 113 countries around the world, including the high seas, which is like half the world, just the blue part. So part of Mission Blue's mission is to inspire people to know, to care, and to take care of what keeps us alive.
Right now to Capitol Hill and the very contentious hearing involving the US Attorney General earlier. Now, lawmakers accused Pound Bondi and the Justice Department of a massive cover-up over the Epstein files. She's repeatedly asked why additional people aren't facing charges related to Epstein's international sex trafficking operation. Republican lawmaker Thomas Massie says Bondi didn't answer anything. He called her responses kind of crazy. Here's part of their exchange from earlier today.
My position is any victim who comes forward, of course, we would love to hear from them. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I'm reclaiming
at all
my
the
time.
last
I'm glad
4
you're
years?
asking about Merrick Garland.
You don't get to reclaim
because
time
this
when
is
you don't-
bigger than
when you can't-
Watergate.
when I don't answer a question the way
This
you
goes
want.
over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
We also have new developments on the US Justice Department against 6 Democratic lawmakers. The federal jury has declined to indict them for posting a video urging service members to disobey any illegal orders. This rare rejection from a grand jury rebukes the Trump administration's efforts to the lawmakers as dangerously undermining the president's authority. We're joined now by government investigations lawyer Ross Garber. He is principal of the Garber Group. Thank you for joining us, Ross. Just explain to us why it was so unusual for the grand jury to do this in relation to the video.
Yeah, look, this was wild. For a few reasons. The first is that hard to do because the grand jury meets in only the prosecutor gets to deliver the case. The defense, the potential accused, doesn't get to raise any defenses. So it's just the prosecutor and the grand jurors. It doesn't need to be unanimous, and the standard is very, very low. So it's virtually unheard of for grand juries to not do what prosecutors want.
The Trump administration doesn't give up very easily. What's their next move or option for a move?
Well, look, they could go back and try again with another grand jury. That's entirely possible. But we have to remember the charges here are pretty unusual and unique. It's not as if the Department of Justice is trying to pursue corruption charges. They're saying that a video released by these Democratic lawmakers saying that the military should, follow only legal orders. They're saying that was, in essence, advocating insubordination in the military. And there are real problems with that case. There's a First Amendment problem. We have a right to freedom of speech in the United States. The lawmakers, what they said was actually accurate. That's true. Members of the military have to follow lawful orders. And so I think this is a very tough case. Perhaps the administration is going to try to make it again to a different grand jury, or they're just going to walk away. And, by walking away, I suppose the Department of Justice senior officials can tell the president, look, we tried, and the grand jury said no.
What did you make of the Bondi hearing as well on Capitol Hill? Because, they've turned into theatrics, haven't they, these events? They don't feel like they're making any progress at all. Yeah,
These things have turned into complete circuses. One of the issues is that the lawmakers, as you saw, get a short amount of time to do questioning. So generally, they make a statement. The witness can kind of filibuster and say whatever he or she wants, and then the lawmaker runs out of time. And yes, in this administration, it's been kind of more than legislative oversight. A lot of Republican votes. And so, that piece isn't over. You're exactly right. The midterm elections are coming up. The Democrats are heavily favored to win the House. And if they win the House, then they get subpoena authority. And the framework might change a bit.
Yeah, okay. We'll see what happens. Ross, really appreciate you joining us on those two topics. Still to come, the mystery over El Paso. We'll look at what caused the US government to abruptly shut down a major Texas airport.
The CNG Spring
Festival Gala. This is where it gets cool. This is where we feel the warmth. And this is where the celebrations heat up. Wherever you are, when the CMG Spring Festival Gala begins, you are coming home.
We've shared the stories of Africa's brightest stars, and now we're opening up the conversation. This is African Voices.
This week, Chef Marcus Samuelsson.
You have become one of the most visible ambassadors for Black and African cooking.
I can't just sideline and hope somebody else is going to do that.
On CNN in association with Glow. This is Uganda.
I'm uncovering the secrets of people around the world who are living happy, healthy, extraordinary lives. Hear how they do it and the science behind why it works. Join me as I reveal their secrets and discover how we can chase life together. Listen to Chasing Life with me, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, wherever you get your podcasts.
Caitlin Collins is your DC source, bringing you unprecedented access to the White House.
We're live from the center of the political universe,
Capitol Hill.
My Democratic source tonight is Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. If you don't get what you need from Congress, can you achieve what you're trying to achieve?
And beyond.
We're live on the ground in Israel tonight about the Gazans leaving. Where exactly are you suggesting that they should go?
Follow Caitlin for in-depth political coverage and analysis, and watch her on The Source, Tuesday through Saturday on CNN.
Business is all about making connections. But some connections are easier to make than others. With a CNN partner hotel, the world is always at your fingertips. CNN partner hotels, connected to your world.
I'm Rahel Solomon in New York, and this is CNN.
Returning now to our top story, the mysterious shutdown of a major US airport along the border with Mexico. The Trump administration says it shut down the El Paso, Texas airport over concerns about drones operated by Mexican drug cartels that were coming into US airspace. But sources tell CNN that the Pentagon wanted to test an anti-drone laser system, and the FAA was worried about having commercial flights in the air when that happened. The airport has now been reopened. A lot of questions.
Affected. So whatever it was lower level, and the FAA has long had very strict rules about any shoot downs of drones. I mean, even if you own 60,000 acres somewhere and a drone's on your property, the FAA takes the position, no, you cannot shoot it down. So in the military proposed shooting down drones near any busy airspace, that would cause the FAA concern. So it appears that the FAA just put a huge number of days on it. That was highly unusual. Even after September 11, 2001, the airspace shutdown was only a few days. And so the length of the time was, kind of catching the FAA flat-footed, difficult like the Olympic scoring, difficulty 10, execution 2. But then when you learn some more of the facts, they did a 6-month study in 2024. There were 24,000 drones crossing the southern border, largely delivering, drugs. And so I can understand the frustration of doing something about them. And the laser shoot down sounds interesting, but there's just too much commercial airspace around there to have perhaps a disabled drone stray into the path of an aircraft, debris, etc., or what the FAA is always worried about in shoot down, missing the drone and getting a plane. So, two agencies, it appears, at odds.
Yeah, they're not coordinating. And then we find out afterwards that local officials didn't know about it, the White House didn't know about it. I think what's worrying for a lot of people is that if these key agencies aren't coordinating properly, it creates risk.
Well, that's right. Now, I will but it sounds like it was rather an emergent operation, and somebody had to make a decision and move pretty quickly.
The decision could have been made by the military not to use this or test this weapon. We don't even know if they actually used it in the end.
We don't know what they used.
No, but there's one thing testing it in military bases away from major cities. Very different doing it in areas like this, but they're clearly moving in that direction.
Well, that's right. And, there's been so much, effort on drones for very long. How do you curtail them? How do you curtain them in? There's lots of electronic ways to do that. Obviously they still get through. There are programs where you can curtain them off. There are programs where you can disable them and have a go home signal. There are lots of ways to do this, but it's difficult when the drones are being launched in those numbers. I mean, 27,000 in 6 months is a lot of drones to deal with. But yes, a disabled drone can always pose a danger to aviation. Let's face it, a goose can bring down a plane, so certainly a drone can too.
Okay, aviation analyst Mary Schiavo, appreciate it.
Thank you.
So final moments of trade on Wall Street and the Dow hanging on to that 50,000 mark. We've had some big jobs data for investors to analyse. This is our business breakout. Jobs growth in January was better than expected as the US economy added 130,000 jobs last month. That's the best monthly number since December 2024. The unemployment rate fell to 4.3%. Economists say it could mean the jobs market is stabilising after a year of weak growth. Shares in Moderna are down after US regulators refused its application to review its first mRNA flu vaccine. The Food and Drug Administration, which operates under Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., says the application didn't meet its standards. Moderna's president called the move a complete stunner. Dutch brewer Heineken says it will cut up to 6,000 jobs from its global workforce. The job cuts amount to almost 7% of its total employees. The number 2 brewer by market value is also setting lower growth expectations as the industry faces weak demand. So, has the US jobs market finally turned a corner? Fed watchers seem to think an interest rate cut is now further away after today's stronger than expected jobs numbers. Yesterday, economists on the CMA Fed Watch tool were putting the chance of a rate cut next month at 20%. After today's jobs numbers, it's now down to 8%. Richard Quest joins us. This isn't what President Trump wants to hear right now.
No, it isn't. And bearing in mind what he said, he has asked of the Fed chair designate, the nominee that he's put forward, Kevin Walsh. It's going to be interesting when Mr. Walsh comes before his confirmation hearing, because on these numbers, the Fed's made it clear that full employment has been their worry, and the weakness in the market, in the job market, has been a concern. Now, we know inflation is already trending higher than the target rate. So in the dual mandate, they've been giving preference, in a sense, to full employment. Now they're going to be starting to think the job market doesn't need help. It's not frothy, but it certainly doesn't need the stimulus of lower interest rates. And it's going to be difficult for them to justify the FOMC cutting rates further for the purposes of jobs.
The jobs numbers in themselves are pretty extraordinary, aren't they? I think economists were predicting 70,000 jobs, and it was nearly double that. So, are things looking a lot better than we thought?
Yes and no. I mean, in the sense that you have to look underneath the numbers. A lot of it's in the service sector. A lot of it was in healthcare, the healthcare industry. If you look at manufacturing, that wasn't so good. If you look at the bits that the president's trying to stimulate, that didn't do so well. So the overall number is good and militates against job cuts. But with AI coming along and all the other things that will have dramatic effects on the job market, it's this one set of numbers should not be read into too much.
Richard, appreciated it. See you at the top of the hour.
Thank you.
Still to come, parents and safety advocates are calling a landmark trial a crucial moment of accountability. Can big tech be held liable for harming children? Details ahead.
In Tokyo, safety is part of everyday life. Vigilant crime prevention keeps streets secure day and night. Rapid response fire crews unite expertise and technology to protect the city. Robust disaster preparedness equips the city for extreme events with a 100-year vision for ever-growing resilience. Safe, prepared, welcoming. That's Tokyo.
Africa is moving fast into the future, and on The Link, Zain Asher is keeping you up to date.
Join me as we take a look at how plugging in and going digital has changed the game.
Witness Africa transform with the latest technology.
Our entire mission is to solve humanity's greatest challenges, leveraging data and AI. We're solving really massive problems at national scale.
And the key players behind them all.
There is an amazing alignment of vision. This will bring developments, jobs, innovation.
The Link on CNN, in association with MTN.
Weekdays on CNN.
Tonight on 316.
The stories that matter.
This whole area is just engulfed in flames.
From Trusted Voice.
We witnessed something nobody alive has ever seen before. You said that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level jobs. How soon might that happen?
A fearless eyewitness.
Getting a red alert to go down to the bomb shelter.
Every night make sense of the world.
How do you make the case that USAID's previous mission was in the United States' national interest?
Anderson Cooper 360. Weekdays on CNN.
Now, Israeli airplanes.
And tournaments.
Emotions sometimes are impossible to control.
The latest highlights.
Women's sport is having a moment that it should have always had.
And exclusive interviews with your favorite coaches and players.
We're going to keep this thing rolling.
You rock. Don't miss CNN World Sport.
Only on CNN.
Now to a landmark trial which puts the world's biggest tech companies under the microscope. The head of Meta-owned Instagram, Adam Mosseri, takes the stand today in Los Angeles. Opening statements began this week. The now 20-year-old plaintiff accuses Meta and YouTube of designing addictive apps that she says damaged her mental health when she was younger. On Monday, her lawyer likened the apps to digital casinos. CNN business tech editor Lisa Chico joins us from New York. I mean, this is such a profound case, isn't it, for a lot of people who get addicted to these apps, but also to the apps themselves. And I think Instagram is arguing, isn't it, that they're accepting that this plaintiff had been negatively impacted in her life, but it was due to factors away from Instagram, for example.
Yes, that is Meta's argument, and Instagram chief Adam Mosseri is the first executive to testify in this trial. And so far, the line of questioning that we've seen so far is really around his opinions on social media addiction, Meta's approach and philosophy to product development, and things like that. And one of the topics that came up today that didn't come up as much in the opening statements, it was around Instagram's policies and decisions regarding beauty filters that alter one's face on the platform. And plaintiff's lawyer did cite some internal Meta documents that indicated emails between executives that indicated that experts have said that those filters are harmful. And Mosseri did respond to that. He did say that at Instagram wanted to ban those filters, but then later made the decision to ban the ones that seemed particularly harmful, the ones that seem to promote cosmetic surgery, and to allow some others. Us a window into the thinking that goes into some of these decisions that Instagram makes that are key to this trial here. And another thing that was interesting that he said so far during his testimony is that he does not think users could be clinically addicted to Instagram, but that automatic use is possible. And Meta is also out with a new statement today regarding the trial, which I just received a couple of hours ago in my inbox, and I'm going to read for you now from a Meta spokesperson. Today, who said the question for the jury in Los Angeles is whether Instagram was a substantial
gold after the 24-year-old clinched gold in the men's downhill and team combined events. He's the first male alpine skier to win 3 golds at the same game since 1968. This is his Olympic debut. Franjo has an inspiring story as well. When he was a teenager, his dad passed away, and it looked like Franjo wouldn't be able to continue the sport he loved for financial reasons until a crowdfunding project was set up to help him, and the rest, as they say, is history. Chloe Kim stepping into the half pipe like Maximus in the arena. Her first appearance at these games, and the 25-year-old dominated, making it look easy, finishing as the top qualifier. But as a wise man once said, it's not easy to make it look easy. Chloe has had to overcome a nasty dislocated shoulder injury to get here and deal with all the pressures that come with being the best. But she did, and now she's one shred closer to a three-peat. No Olympian has ever 3 straight snowboard half pipe. She's the Simone Biles of the half pipe. A long time coming. She says she's learned a lot on this journey, especially since winning her first gold at just 17 years old in Pyeongchang. Listen to this.
as I've gotten older, I've started to learn more about myself and kind of what my boundaries are and what I'm capable of doing. Maybe like sometimes I need to learn when to back off, and I think taking a lot of time off has been really important for me and my mental well-being. It's been a really beautiful journey to learn more about myself and kind of discover who I am as a 25-year-old now.
American superstar speeds
This is really complex. This agribusiness.
The biggest economic trends impacting the country.
Nobody has ever done this in Africa.
Really doing something here.
So good to be here. In a divided America,
Where do I fit? You tell me, ask your partner.
Abby Phillip brings all sides to the table.
The hypocrisy is so rank, folks at home. Classes in session.
To talk about the issue.
Congresswoman, it is false. The answer is zero.
Policy.
What is the Democratic Party about? Can you answer that question?
And the biggest debates to wrap up your day.
You're saying Trump believes in, but do you think it's a good idea?
News Night with Abby Phillip, Tuesday through Saturday on CNN.
Did
the re-election of Donald Trump play any role in your decision to resign?
He was battling stage 3 bowel cancer late in 2024. Lisa Respa France joins me now. So young, and so many people reminded of the 90s. He was an absolute icon of that era. Hi, Lisa. Can you hear me okay? Hello, Lisa? Okay. We'll come back to Lisa later on. Finally tonight, the much-anticipated Super Bowl ratings have been released. The big halftime show, of course, Bad Bunny scoring the biggest win at the Super Bowl, arguably, with his halftime show. Ratings showing that about 128 million people across the US tuned in to watch his performance. That's according to Nielsen ratings. The program in NBC's 100-year history. And as Brian Stelter reports, the numbers went to stellar for Turning Point USA's alternative show.
Yeah, the ratings report card is in, and it shows that the NFL, NBC, and Bad Bunny were all big winners on Sunday night. The ratings from Nielsen showed that about 125 million people in the U.S. watched the Super Bowl. That makes it the #2 Super Bowl in history, only behind last year's Super Bowl, which was televised on Fox. The reason why the numbers were down a little bit year over year is the lopsided nature of this year's game. Seahawks were dominant the entire time, so some Patriots fans and others out in the third and definitely the fourth quarters. We know the second quarter was the highest overall, and a lot of audience then still a decent number on YouTube, but again, much smaller than the $8 million.
Ideas and propose another explanation was the great Abu Ali ibn Sina, a son of Bukhara, rightly called the father of medical science.
At the age of 17, he saved the ruler of the Samanids and chose as his reward not gold, but access to the library.
Gradually, he moved from commentary and analysis to building his own philosophical and scientific